Let's now welcome to the show the head coach of the Canadian men's national team, Mr. Jesse Marsch, getting set for 2 games in this September window. Pretty exciting to see the men back in action. Welcome to the show, by the way. And I know you've been doing your media rounds. There's a lot to get into. But the last time you and I actually spoke was at an event in the city of Toronto in the summer. And at that time, a lot of players still hadn't signed or landed with some of their clubs. Now that they have, what stood out to you the most about maybe where some of these players have landed for you?
Yeah, I was talking, at the event, Andy, which you hosted really well. Thank you for making myself and Bob Park look so good at the Glory Sports event. We at that time I predicted that there might be between 10 and 15 transfers of our players, and it turned out to be somewhere around 13, 14. So obviously a lot of changes. I was able to, I guess the right word to use is participate in a lot of these transfers and decisions and work with the agents and the players and discuss, what situations might be best and most beneficial for the player and his club career, but also looking forward to what we're doing with the national team and the World Cup next summer. So I feel good that a lot of players actually have gone to places and clubs and coaches that I'm familiar with or that I know. And I think that will help us really work together to help the players be in the best position to perform for club and country. And I think everyone who's taken on players looking into next summer at a club level is also very aware that these players are really looking forward to the possibility of what the World Cup can be. And I think the Canadian players are special in that way because it's a home World Cup. So the discussions have been really good, really professional, and I'm really happy with where most of the players have landed.
Obviously, with Canada being in the World Cup, I mean, these are World Cup players or potential World Cup players, and they'll be coveted by teams. But at the same time, how much credit do you give to the players and what they've been able to do on the national stage to warrant attention from big clubs? I mean, obviously, Jonathan David's the biggest one with Juventus. I mean, at what point do you give credit where credit's due and that these players have earned the right to represent the Maple Leaf at the pro level at some of these storied franchises?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, like players like Johnny and Alphonso Davies, they kind of have created such a high level of play and already such great careers that they've garnered attention from the best clubs in the world. I think some of the best stories are like Tani Oluwaseyi and Nathan Saliba and guys who came from MLS, have fought their way to get to Europe and have landed at good clubs and are ready to perform at a really high level. And I think that we're, as a national team, really going to benefit from that. So it's exciting to see a lot of the different players playing at different clubs at a high level, a few more in Italy. So, I can keep track of them a little bit more closely. But in general, I think the relationships we have here on the inside of the national team are really true, really strong. And I'm proud to represent this national team because of the country, but also because of these players.
Where do you see the most competition happening as well within this squad? You just mentioned a lot of these players who have come onto the scene since you've been the head coach. I mean, is that competition in the midfield? Is it who's going to play against Jonathan David? I know these are things we talk about in the media, but I'm curious, as a coach, where do you see some of that toughest competition happening on the pitch for you?
I think now we've put together a squad in a roster that there's competition at literally every spot. And that's saying something given, how high the level of certain players in the what would be considered the starting 11 are at. But the entire squad has been bolstered. We're younger, we're more dynamic. We've got a lot of players playing at a really high level. I certainly think that in the attacking positions, man, we have a lot of options. We have a lot of dynamic players. We have a lot of guys that I think can help us in a lot of different ways. It gives us some flexibility to how we play. In the center of the midfield, in like the 6, 8, 10 position, we've got a lot of really good players. And I think that obviously Stefan Estacio is such a great leader in the team. But Ismail Kone, Nathan Saliba, Matthew Fournier, we didn't even call in Oso. And I think Oso's playing really well since summer and since he's been healthy with Toronto, and it helped them kind of stabilize. And then as good as our back line is, and as good as we know guys like Alphonso Davies, Derek Cornelius, Moise Bombito, and Alistair Johnston are, Luke DeFugerola is going to push all those guys. We know Richie Larea is a really important guy in the team. Nico Segura, I think, had a great Gold Cup and will fill in for Alistair. And I think getting more experience for him will be really helpful for him and the team. And lastly is goalkeeper, man. I mean, I know in Canada, we all love our goalkeeper, but we know that Dane and Max have a real strong competition there. And that in all these situations, I feel just like we have options. It's hard to make wrong decisions, and we can think about how to use players against the best opponents and what combinations of players give us the best chance of finding an edge in the match.
How much of that, when it comes to options and depth, has changed since you took over? Because I remember when we spoke as well, you said I could only name a few for sure. Now, do you feel like you have a bigger talent pool to choose from? And why do you think that is?
Well, I definitely do, 100%. And, I think when I first came that I would have said, okay, at the summer of 2024, before Copa America, maybe from what I know of the team and what I saw in the first couple of weeks, I could put 12 or 13 names down that I thought would be in the squad for 2026. Now I think that number is close to 23, 24. Like, fighting for those last spots will be incredibly difficult. Liam Miller just texted me about 10 minutes ago and said he's back on the pitch and going to be eligible for matches here in the middle of September, end of September. So that's really exciting. We still have Moyes, we still have Alistair, we still have Alfonso. So, and then, we've invested. I like young players. I think, if you followed my coaching career, you know that I've developed and worked with a lot of young players and helped them really launch their careers in the right way. And we've tried to do that with the national team. And I think with where we are as the Canadian national team, that developing talent through the national team, not just watching what they do with the club, but challenging them to understand the standards that we want the game to be played at, has benefited these players and given them opportunity to do well with the national team, which has helped them have confidence with their club team and ultimately give them the opportunity to maybe transfer to bigger situations and have better financial and career situations for their families and themselves. And we're really proud of that. We're really proud of the growth of the team.
Speaking of growth, I mean, a lot of these players do have Champions League experience under them. And I think now there's about five Canadians still remaining in Champions League. I know Juventus and Villarreal are going to face each other at some point here with David and Tajon Buchanan, and now Tanny making that move too. When you watch two Canadians playing against each other in such a huge tournament, first of all, what are you thinking as a coach? And I'm curious if you have any favorites.
Yeah, so in France, we had last year a lot of the guys playing against each other. I mean, very notable was Johnny and Derek playing against each other because they're like best friends, So
Yeah.
I was at one of those matches and I could see, they both took it very seriously. Neither one wanted to give the other one an inch. But I love seeing that, right? The competitiveness of who they are and the seriousness of their friendship means that they want to be at their best against each other. So I don't have any fan. I'm not a fan of any club. And look, growing up, I was a fan of AC Milan, but that was so long ago. Now it's more, I like teams that play good football. I'm certainly a fan of all of our Canadian national team players. The fact that they're going to a lot of clubs where I'm close to the people that are inside the club or coaching the team really gets me excited about the impact and the collaboration that we can have as the national team and with these clubs to help these players be at their best. So I would now say every week when the matches come on, I'm such a big fan of these guys and I love seeing perform well and they certainly make us all proud.
I love storylines too. I think the older I'm getting, maybe the sappier I'm becoming, but knowing what Tajon Buchanan has gone through with his injuries, to see him land at that club, to see him get a hat trick, what does it mean, even for you as a coach, to see a player feel comfortable in his body again?
Yeah. Well, I think Tajon's a confidence player too. And if you could just see the swagger he has during training, the belief he has in himself. He's not the most outwardly vocal person or player, but you see the difference, the spring in his step, right? When he's playing well and when he feels confident and when he wants the ball. And a big part of it has been his physical fitness. Like even before Copa, he wasn't playing much and he wasn't at his top fitness level and form. And now to see him, what I knew from the beginning, because of watching him in MLS and watching him in Europe and watching him from afar, I knew Kajon was one of our biggest talents. And he's now showing just how big a talent he is. So exciting, really exciting. I think that Villarreal made a really good decision in getting him permanently. And I think he's going to have an absolutely great season.
Well, looking forward to these two games here. I know when we had spoken earlier, you had talked about Kyle Larin and waiting for the birth of a baby, because we know now he's not in camp anymore. You called in Theo Bear. Is that because of that?
Yeah. So Kyle, it was a busy week for Kyle. He's not done yet. He's not done yet. So his wife is due in a few days. So he's going back to Toronto to be with her. He was trying to decide between a couple different clubs. I think landing at Feyenoord will be a really good situation for him. They're playing in Europa League. They're going to have a lot of matches. Robin van Persie, I think, is a young, up-and-coming, good coach. And I know Dennis DeClosa. He's the sport director there at Feyenoord, and he was with me way back at Chivas USA. So dating myself a little bit by even mentioning that club. But Dennis and I were pretty close back then. He was the academy director, and I was one of the captains of the team. And we used to talk a lot about football. We became very close. When I was at Leeds, we bought a player from him named Luis Sinisterra. So we had contact then. We've been in really close contact ever since. So really excited for Kyle. I think it's a really important season for him. I think he needs to have a good season to get himself into real good form and fitness. I think he needs to be a big part of the Canadian national team for the 2026 World Cup. And I know that Dennis and I are going to work carefully to make sure that we give him the best opportunity to do that.
Let's just talk about this first match, Romania. What does success look like for you?
Win, right? We came here to win. And we haven't won against a European opponent on their home soil since 2009. And we've talked along the way. We've had a lot of different boxes to check of things we've wanted to achieve on our way to the World Cup. Obviously, we came short in the Gold Cup title endeavor, but we all know that we're on a good pathway. We're going to now lean a little bit more toward finding a real stable lineup, finding our best group. And then, I challenged the team this morning that I showed them that we haven't had good performances off the bench, that we haven't had enough 90-minute complete performances from all 16 players that have been called upon. And that's the challenge now, not to just have a good start to the match, not to just have the lead when we get it at halftime. And if you looked at our goal differential, which you guys can do, since I've been here, we've had great first halves and mediocre second halves. And if we can find a way to perform in the second half like we have in the first half, then I think we have a chance to be really, really good and have a really good chance to win against the top opponents.
Is that is that a message to the bench? How do you rectify that in the second half?
Well, look, of course, I evaluate what I've done and what we've done as a staff. And have we had the right messages at halftime? Have we made the right subs? Have we made the right tactical changes? But if you just look at, whether it's goals and assists or goal differential or performances or the eye test, the first halves have been much stronger than the second. And so, yeah, it is that we're ready from the bench. Like, of course, I know every footballer, when he doesn't start, isn't happy, right? And wants to play the whole match. But the best way to earn that spot is when you get called on at any time to perform at your best. And I use Junior Hoyland. Like, we have Junior back in. And at Hibs, they use him from the bench, from the start. They put him at a halftime. They use him in all different ways. They use him in different positions on the field. And Junior's performances are always steady and always at a high level. And he's always a big plus for Hibs. And he's helped them have one of the best seasons in their history and qualify for Europe. So, I think having him here, mentioning that to the group, understanding the high-level professionalism it takes to be at your best all the time, and certainly the way that guys look to Junior and respect him, I think will be helpful for us in this camp and now in the overall development of the team moving forward for next summer.
All right. Well, best of luck. Looking forward to these two games. And now another game announced against Ecuador as well on November 13th. So it's great to see the men in action as you continue your preparation for the World Cup 2026.
We have some pretty good opponents, so we're really excited.
Great stuff, Jesse. Looking forward to seeing you guys in action. And yes, you just also announced another game, November 13th at BMO Field against Ecuador, and really appreciate you taking the time here on Just Soccer.